Hey guys, welcome to my bed office. This is the business side of my bed, and this is the I'm waiting for heart surgery and can't get out of bed side of my bed. And so, whilst I'm really limited in what I can do physically, I can absolutely talk and love to talk about dog behavior and just making sure that you do all of the right things with your puppy and dog, so that you can ensure that you've got a dog that is a pleasure to have and to take out, rather than a problem, a lifelong problem. So every animal, right, especially other mammals, have a critical socialization window. And what that means is it's a small chunk of time in early childhood, be you a dog, a cat, a human, where all of your interactions and everything you're expected to live with in life and tolerate is introduced in a positive way to you. So think of the human baby, they're meeting the people and all of the cooing and the eye contact and the taking them out and letting them experience the world is all part of the natural healthy development of an animal. So if you've got the pleasure of actually, or it's a privilege, I guess, or not all people get their dogs as puppies. So a lot of people are kind of dealing with all the issues that their dog has, that it may have been owned by somebody who is good and socialized it and trained it, but often they're not. And often that's why they're ending up at the pound. So there is just such a difference in a dog's, for life, a well-socialized dog compared to an under-socialized dog. And if you miss that critical window, you never get it back. I can help you to socialize your adult dog with the world, but it is a different process. It takes a lot longer. You are dealing with not only pre-existing behaviors, but that small period of time, the critical window, that whatever happens or doesn't happen in that time sets your whole dog's behavior for life. So you don't get it back. And it's just so critical. That's why it's called a critical socialization window. If you miss it with many breeds, you've got a big problem. So I want to talk about it because there can be some decisions that you have to make when it comes to that. I want to tell you my life, my work is, my light's gone off. I'm sitting on it. My work is dealing with dogs who have not been adequately socialized during their critical window. Because if you don't meet your dog's socialization needs, it will have behavioral issues. And how serious those are depends on the breed, its experiences within your family. So there's lots of issues that can arise. And with certain breeds of dogs, they can be far more problematic than with others. That being said, every single dog needs adequate socialization. And socialization must happen in that little 3-month max window. Must. You need to look at it like, let's say you've got a human child and you kept it away from the world for the first 4 years of its life, right? Until its vaccinations were fully complete. You can't then take that child out into the world and expect it to cope and accept things when it has not had experience or socialization with those things. So we see what happens when babies and children are neglected or abused, and it has lifelong ramifications. So if you've got a puppy, that's awesome. That means you can make this dog fully solid and be responsible for socializing it with every single thing in your life that it needs to be. And it's everything from family members, strangers, cars, being around lawnmowers and motorbikes, other animals, cats. If you don't have small animals and you don't have cats, make sure that you make an effort to take them around to a friend's that does. You're wanting to give your dog a really nice experience with everything. Because if you don't do it, one of two things happens. You get a dog that becomes aggressive because it's just frightened and not familiar with the world. Or you get a dog that is afraid and scared of the world. And neither of those things are good for the dog. You know, dogs just are happiest when they're with us. And they're easiest when they're with us. Like my dog is just asleep on the floor down there. You'd never know it. He'd happily, and he does, sleep all day with me because I'm unwell with my heart and I can't do much. So he's my sleeping buddy. I'm not going to lie, I've got to the point when it comes to privately consulting with people, I get called in to deal with a whole manner of different behavioural issues, and I'm up for almost all of those. The one that I can't help you with is if you are trying to keep your dog separate from your family and your dog is just out in the backyard and it's not allowed in for whatever reason, and it really goes out for a walk, and your dog is barking or reacting to anything, be it family members, whatever it is, I can't help you with that because you are keeping a dog in a way that is not natural for a dog. Dogs are pack animals. They want to be with you. That is why separation anxiety is such a big thing. They are pack animals. So if you're trying to keep, especially a young, healthy, active dog outside, it is hard. You know, it usually does not work. Usually doesn't work. And so my consultations with people like that usually involve me educating them and trying to work away at how we can start to bring that dog into their world. Because once your dog is in your family, it will grow into a nice, well-adjusted dog and an easy dog. But if you're trying to keep that Kelpie in the backyard on a lead away from the family, that is just, I can't help you with that. You're doing the wrong thing. So socialization is everything, but I want you to prioritize socialization with other dogs. Sorry, I keep looking out because I'm waiting for a parcel to come, and a text just came through saying the postie's coming. The parcel guy's coming. So I'm just keeping an eye out. You need to prioritize the dog thing because for a few reasons, actually. One of them being, again, dogs are happiest and you are happiest when we've got a well-adjusted dog that we can take out into the world and we know it's not going to run onto the road and chase a bike. We know it's not going to attack another dog or be so fearful that it can't interact with other dogs in the world, because you're going to socialize it with other dogs. It's their most important requirement, and it requires a lot. So let me explain it to you. The window is short. It's over by 20 weeks at the latest. So you need to start the moment you get your puppy. Now, there are some issues with that, and I'm going to talk about those, and I will do that in a minute. So you get your puppy. It's in the middle of its critical window. The average dog during its critical window needs to have met at least 100 other dogs in a nice way. It needs to have positive experiences with at least 100 other dogs before its critical window ends. So you need to look at your situation and ask yourself, is that happening? And I'm not talking about your mum's dog, and I'm not talking about your other dog. This is about dogs learning to encounter new dogs and be able to deal with it in a way that's not hard for everybody. Being that it's aggression, it's reactivity, or it's absolute fearfulness. So the average dog needs 100 experiences. High requirement breeds need double that. And it's not just for the critical window, okay? You need to, that's just the start of their socialization journey. They're puppies for around 3 years, give or take, depending on the breed. So the more socialization you can do for your dog in the first 2 years of life, you will guarantee almost always that you have a great dog that you can take out, let out, trust when it's out, and all of that kind of thing. So because that little window determines your dogs for life, and because my job is trying to re-socialize dogs with the world that have missed out, and how intensive that is and how much more work that is, and yes, I do it, and yes, it can be done, but some breeds and some dogs, you can't. You just can't make up for that lost window. But that's my job. I try to help you to do that, and we make great progress with most dogs. So you need to think about how you're going to facilitate that for your dog. So what I do, which I'm not doing at the moment because I'm about to have heart surgery, I run group socialization classes every Sunday for dogs between 8 weeks of age and 3 years of age. It is a constant ongoing class. So there is just new puppies joining all the time, aging out of the system or getting bored or moving on, new ones coming in. So, and it's facilitated by me. So I'm there to help you and help your dog learn to socialize with other dogs, because it's not something that they can just instantly do. If you're kept away from the world for 4 years when you're a baby, you're gonna have massive socialization issues for your whole life. That's the ramifications. It's just the way it is. It's just a critical socialization window. So something like my class, and you can find things like you can find puppy school at a vet clinic, but you need to understand 4 weeks of puppy school isn't enough. It's just the beginning. And the whole point of it is to start socializing your dog, even though its vaccines aren't completed, because we understand there's a critical window happening right now that this dog does not get back. And that's why you'll often see in vet clinics, that's why we have puppy school. So what you're doing is you're taking a little bit of a risk, but it's a calculated risk. So what your decision is if I wait until the end of my dog's vaccination cycle to socialize my dog, because I'm afraid it might catch the diseases it's not vaccinated against, you miss your critical window. So by the time the vaccines are done, it's over. So you can join puppy school or dog classes, but again, you've missed the window, so your dog is just going to be that higher level of work needed. Okay. Now, when it comes to when to start socializing your dog, for me, the day I get it, it has to be that way. And I make sure it's met its 100 dogs in a positive way. by doing something like attending the classes that I run, or the ones at your local vet that are facilitated for under-vaccinated dogs. And then once it's done that and its vaccines are complete, then you just go out into the world and you socialize your dog with every single thing and dog you can. So it's ongoing. And you do it for a few years of your dog's life, you will be rewarded with a dog that's enjoyable and that you can trust. And for me, it's always, I want to know that if my dog gets out while I'm at work, that it's not going to, sorry, I've got cat hair in my mouth, that it's not going to eat my neighbour's guinea pigs or cat or chase the postie. You know what I mean? So dogs do get out, and it's important that your dog is able to be okay in the world if that happens. So ways you can socialize your dog once it's vaccinated are dog parks. Off-lead dog parks are fantastic and I love them. Allowing your dog just to run around with other dogs, it tires them out in a way that we can't do. And it also meets their really necessary socialization requirements. And they learn how to be around other dogs that are running and without being triggered. So take your dog to your kids' school and let all of the kids pat it. And the most important thing you can do as an owner is be aware that your dog is listening to the tone of your voice. Your voice determines everything. You know, and I use this kind of example all the time. I can pretty much guarantee that if I've got, let's say I've got somebody's Rottweiler, right? And I've got to walk it past a cage full of cats or a little cat in a cage that's terrified, I could egg that dog on to react to that cat in a negative way. As in, I could go, get it, get it. And dogs are just very guided by your tone of voice and understand you and would act on that. So what you've got to do instead, you've got to treat it the exact same way that you would if it was your child in kinder. You get down with them on their level. You teach, you encourage them to have social interactions in a positive way. You praise them for it. You provide opportunities to do that. You know, dogs are mammals. We're mammals. We all have our socialization needs. And it's the same thing. If you miss them, you're going to have a problem. So, regarding the vaccination, I start my dog socializing the day I get it, right? And I want to explain to you why. As I said, my life is dealing with the dogs that have missed it, and often it's a lifelong issue for the owner. Now, regarding the vaccinations and the diseases we're vaccinating against distemper, and this is in Australia, distemper, hepatitis, and parvovirus, right? And lots of people, and I understand why, want to wait until after the course of vaccinations is complete to begin socialising their dog for safety reasons. But what you're doing is you are creating behavioural issues that can be lifelong. Distemper, hepatitis, parvovirus, and kennel cough, right? Kennel cough is a cough. They often, it's called kennel cough because it's often present where there are groups of dogs. And it's kind of standard that if your dog boards in a kennel, a few weeks later, it may develop a cough. It's not the end of the world. They recover from it. It's a cold. Okay, so one of them's a cold. Distemper. I've been a vet nurse for over 25 years and I've never ever seen a case of distemper. So prioritizing the socialization in a dog that you know if you don't do it, you're going to have a problem for life, versus I may encounter distemper, which hasn't really been around for my whole life. So distemper, right? Hepatitis, that's another one. The chances of your puppy having that as a problem or even encountering that, I don't think I've ever heard of that either. I've been a vet nurse for over 25 years. So these two diseases, your dog probably won't ever encounter. So you prioritize the vaccination. Now, the one that is worth knowing is parvovirus. Now, as a vet nurse, when I first started vet nursing, dogs died of parvovirus all the time. And then vaccination became standard, and I didn't see it for 15 years. When I have seen it, it's been very rare. It's usually in situations like where there are lots of dogs perhaps that are being neglected. You'll often encounter it from puppy farms and things like that. So we don't want our dogs to get parvovirus. These days, if your dog does get parvovirus, we treat it, and it's usually your dog is fine. But it isn't nice. It involves lots of diarrhea and being extremely unwell, and historically dogs have died from parvovirus. In my 30 years of vet nursing, I reckon I've nursed maybe 5 dogs with parvovirus. So that is the one disease to consider. And what I normally recommend is, it is unlikely your dog's going to encounter it if you socialize in a mindful way before your dog's vaccines are due. As in, you're going to this created environment at the vet clinic, okay, where everyone is under the understanding that our dogs are not fully vaccinated. So we don't bring them if they're sick. We don't bring them if they've had diarrhea. We bring them if they are well. And we take that little risk because the lifelong behavior of your dog is just so critical. It's just so critical. I've seen so many dogs ruined, or not ruined, but living with lifelong behavioural complications that are hard on it and the owner because you've waited until after the critical window is over. And some breeds cannot, that's not okay. Do you know what I mean? It's risks versus benefits. What is the risk that my dog is going to encounter one of these extremely rare diseases in the first 10 to 12 weeks of its life, versus what are the implications of missing the socialization window so that I can complete that course of vaccinations? As a nurse who sees the diseases, who knows how often you see these kinds of diseases versus how often we're putting dogs down because they just haven't been properly socialized, and they're having real problems as a result of that, okay? And as I said, the severity depends on the dog. So my advice to you is, don't be stupid. Don't take your unsocialized puppy to the Million Paws Walk or some kind of, massive dog event. Be selective. Take it to the vet. Take it to, even carrying your dog around the dog park and talking to it really positively, patting the other dogs, giving it social experiences so that you're getting that socialization requirements met. Now listen, 10 days after your second vaccination, your puppy is protected against the deadly diseases. And that is all we care about. We do not care about the para-influenza Bordetella that is kennel cough, and the socialization is more important than that, okay? So my advice to you is you start immediately and you don't be dumb about it. And then the second your dog is fully vaccinated and you get that done as quickly as possible, you then open up your dog's world to the rest of the world and continue its socialization, ideally for the first 2 to 3 years of its life. And you won't regret it. You can have a dog that is a pleasure as opposed to a massive pain in the ass. Coming to my classes, you really get to see the difference between dogs that have been socialized at the right time and those that haven't. And it's chalk and cheese, and it's hard for the other dogs, and we do it. But yeah, it's harder and it's longer and more expensive and all of those things. So look, I think that's about it. Know that your dog has a critical window. If you've got the gift of being able to have your dog during that time, socialize your dog so that it fits in with your life and you will have an easy pet. Dogs are happy just to be with us and be near us. And when you keep them in that way, you don't have problems like barking and escaping and reactivity and all of that. They're pack animals. You need to bring them in. You need to nurture their socialization in the same way that you'd nurture your child's. And I think that's about it. If you've got any questions about it, feel free to ask me. I'm really happy to respond to any concerns that you have. I understand the decision to be made. And I just want to say that for me, it's a no-brainer. It's an absolute no-brainer. Your dog's behavior for life is just so critical. And the chance that your dog is going to encounter something like distemper or hepatitis is minimal. So you got to look at the risks versus the benefits. I think that's about it. Bye, guys.